experiencing that here in Toronto.
We're not testing at the capacity that is needed to fully understand and control infections.
The number of new COVID-19 cases in Ontario is trending up. Testing numbers are down. It is a combination that could threaten the progress we've made against the disease. The province has gradually started to reopen because of consistent declines in the daily new cases of COVID-19, but that is not what has been happening lately. The numbers provided by the Ontario Ministry of Health show cases trending down on a consistent basis starting in late April. But around May 11th, that 5-day rolling average of daily new cases starts trending up again, and it's maintained that trajectory for the past week. Adding to that, today was the 4th straight day Ontario missed its daily target of completing 16,000 COVID-19 tests. This is raising concerns from public health officials, especially since the province has started to loosen its pandemic restrictions. Our Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley has more.
Even though anyone with symptoms of COVID-19 can now get a test in Ontario, the traffic at this drive-through assessment centre is pretty slow.
We're not testing at the capacity that is needed to fully understand and control infections in the province.
So far in May, Ontario has only met its daily testing target about half the time. The numbers have fallen particularly short of the mark this week, frustrating Premier Doug Ford.
I'll be like an 800-pound gorilla on their backs every single day if I have to until I see these numbers go up.
It's not just the number of tests that matters, but also who gets tested. For the past month, Ontario has focused on testing every resident and staff at long-term care homes. That task is now essentially done. So what should the next testing focus be?
The next step is then moving out into asymptomatic screening and really getting a sense of the prevalence within our communities.
There's mounting evidence that people without symptoms are spreading the virus. Finding them is the next testing challenge.
That means not testing just the symptomatic and the people we know are likely infected, but going after the cases where we think they exist but aren't aware of them yet. So hunting the disease down.
Experts recommend testing people whose jobs force a lot of exposure to the public, such as supermarket staff and bus drivers.
I want to see truckers tested. I want to see taxi drivers tested. I want to see food processing plants being tested. That's what I want, and I'm confident it's going to happen.
No details yet from Doug Ford about how Ontario will ramp up its testing capacity, but he is promising a plan next week. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
Despite those missed testing targets and increasing cases of COVID-19, outdoor sport and recreation spaces in Toronto are starting to reopen. But should we be moving so quickly? Lisa Shing joins us live from Coronation Park near Ontario Place. And Lisa, come this weekend, that park and many others likely will be bustling.
Right, so Dwight, the warm weather has brought out a lot of people already, but come this weekend, I suspect even more will be out because for the first time in about 2 months, baseball diamonds here as well as other park amenities will officially be opened by the city. But the caveat is that people still need to physically distance and you shouldn't really hang out in groups that are outside of your household.
As soon as Joe Piccarelli heard the city was opening tennis courts, he headed straight there.
It's beautiful weather and you can't be cooped up inside.
But the gates were still locked because the city says tennis courts will begin to open this weekend, as will soccer fields, basketball courts, and picnic shelters. Most people can't wait.
This is a time we need to take care of our mental health too, so a good way of doing so is going outdoors and practicing some sports.
As we do the guidelines, I think the players are happy to get back exercise.
I am sort of concerned about it because I'm not sure we have any idea of whether we're controlling this or not.
The rolling average of cases in Ontario has slightly increased in the last week. Health officials say that might be from the last of the tests conducted in long-term care homes, and that the latest numbers show cases of community spread are below the province's target for reopening.
We're pretty well at a plateau, whereas we would hope to keep coming down in that regard, in that light. So, well, that is disappointing, and we're trying to get a sense of why is that accruing.
Some experts say we still aren't testing enough to open up as much as we have.
we are very, very likely to experience surges in disease. Indeed, my group thinks we're already experiencing that here in Toronto.
Considering the Greater Toronto Area accounts for more than 60% of Ontario's cases, others are still urging the province to loosen restrictions on different cities at different times.
The Greater Toronto Area should not hold back all of Northern Ontario. By the same token, opening up the places that can be opened up would be putting Toronto at great risk.
Now, the province says the increase in numbers isn't a result of the reopening this week. We'll get a clearer idea of the effect of that by next week, Dwight.
So, Lisa, like you said off the top, the parks will be open again, but physical distancing guidelines are still in place. So how does the city plan to enforce those rules?
Right, so the City of Toronto says bylaw officers will be out this weekend. They will be issuing tickets, but keep in mind the city has more than 1,500 green spaces and parks, so there's no way that bylaw officers can really keep an eye on everyone. So the city's really relying on people to use their best judgment, really, and police themselves. Dwight?
Thank you, Lisa. Dozens of people are lining up for hours to get into Service Ontario. Many of the centres are either closed or have reduced hours during the pandemic. And as Hilary Johnstone explains, even the Premier wants them open back up.
75 minutes before this Service Ontario location even opened its doors this morning, there were already 75 people in line.
I think this is crazy. Yeah, having to wait in line in that, I think this is crazy. And it has to come to a stop.
People started lining up at 6:30 this morning. The centre opens at 10. For many, this was their second day in a row waiting.
I think it's silly that there aren't. It seems like an essential service. Like they have Timmy's open everywhere.
Yeah. Service Ontario locations have cut back their hours during the pandemic. This one is only open 8 hours a week.
I just think maybe like a system where they did appointments or something would kind of mitigate this, because if we have a second wave and it's in winter, I can't imagine this being feasible at all.
Service Ontario is urging people not to visit a centre unless it's absolutely necessary. The government has extended the validity of licenses and health cards, and you can apply for renewals online. Many people in line this morning said they didn't know that.
My question is, why aren't we opening these up? You know, let's open these up, practice social distancing.
Government needs to do a better job of...
Ottawa area MPPs are calling on the government to do a better job of making sure people can do that.
Service Ontario needs to take, like many retailers, our responsibility for the lineup outside your store. Help people. Be, you know, I don't want to say it's policing, but just help social distancing.
Ontario's Ministry of Government and Consumer Services declined an interview, but in a statement it said that it takes the health of its employees and customers very seriously. It reiterated that most services can be accessed online, and it said it's in active discussions to reopen service centres when and where it's possible. Hilary Johnstone, CBC News, Ottawa.
GO Transit is decreasing the size of its trains on both of its lakeshore lines starting on Monday. Each train will be reduced from 12 to 6 coaches. Metrolink says it is to make better use of the resources while ridership numbers are low during the pandemic, and it will continue to monitor all trips to ensure there is enough space for physical distancing. The decrease is part of a wider adjustment of services that will also see platform changes for some routes. Metrolink says although services have been reduced during the COVID-19 outbreak, all train lines have continued to operate.
This isn't something that just Shopify is going to feel. I believe this is a tidal wave that is hitting all companies. You see it all over the industry right now.
Coming up, Shopify is letting all 5,000 of their employees work from home for good. Is this a sign of things to come? And is this the concept of open offices? Is that over with? We'll have that for you after a look at your weather. Just think about it, Colette, doing the forecast every day from, say, a condo balcony.
Yeah,
or a terrace.
That's all right, right? If you can be outside when it's a day like this, glorious conditions. These are the daytime highs. I'm going to give you a moment here. Just have a look. Anything stand out to anyone at home there as the hot spot? Maybe it's not a test, but notice Ottawa, the nation's capital, 25 degrees. In fact, some of the warmest temperatures along the border between Ontario and Quebec. And then closer to the lakeshore, temperatures a little bit cooler here, but still lovely highs right around 20 degrees in most cases. And even looking at the current temperature, still sitting at 20 in Toronto and at Pearson, 21 there in Markham and Hamilton. Yeah, you went up to 20 degrees today, which was nice. Still that breeze coming in from the east to northeast, but the thing is it was lighter today. So yesterday afternoon, those winds were gusting to about 40 kilometers an hour. So in those peak afternoon hours, the temperature was holding right around 15. Today with lighter winds, that temperature got up there to 20 degrees. Clear skies tonight. More stargazing is in store if you like that. But I'll tell you something, we are going to see a little bit of cloud cover moving in towards the Niagara region, pushing towards Hamilton later in the day tomorrow. So there's some cloud cover coming. There's also going to be a chance of some showers coming into the forecast. So I want to talk about that coming up. For now, just know that this evening the sun sets at 8:42, 16 degrees as we get towards about 8, 9 o'clock, and then it'll cool off overnight 9, and tomorrow even warmer than today with a few clouds moving in. Dwight, 22 degrees, but I'll tell you when the next chance of showers is coming up.
Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
The weather update is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. We test, so it runs. Take advantage of special offers now. It's hard to stop a train.
While many businesses are struggling during the pandemic, there is one Canadian company that is surging, Shopify. Released in 2006, Shopify has become the de facto platform for online selling around the world. Over 1 million businesses in 175 countries use the service for e-commerce. That includes the Ontario Cannabis Store's online shop. While they are headquartered in Ottawa, Shopify has a major footprint here in Toronto. A few years ago, the company announced a $500 million investment in new real estate and increased hiring in the city. There are even plans for a Shopify production studio for TV and film development in Toronto. But the company made its biggest splash earlier this month when it passed RBC as the most valuable company in Canada, worth over $121 billion. That's why a tweet from their CEO today turned heads. It said Shopify will keep their offices closed until 2021 due to COVID-19, and even post-pandemic, most work will be done remotely, saying, quote, office centricity is over. Shopify's Chief Talent Officer, Brittany Forsyth, joins us now. Brittany, let's start with that big announcement today. Can you give us any insight into what digital by default means and why this decision was made?
Yeah, for sure. Exciting day here at Shopify. We launched internally and now externally our mental model around digital by default. And really what it means is no matter where you are around the world, whether you are working from home or from an office space or traveling on vacation in a minivan, we're still going to work the same way together, which is digitally. And so our collaboration, our tooling, our technologies will all be digital. And that's how we're going to get work done.
Have you heard back from your employees about this? How are they feeling about this change?
Yeah, so we launched internally, always launch internally first, and we had a big conversation about it. And there are a lot of emotions. I mean, the reality is that there is a sense of loss going on, which is a loss of the old way, a loss of pre-COVID days, while also a sense of optimism towards the future. And so we are in a lot of conversations. We're given a lot of time to digest this new way of being, and we are in early days of this with the company.
You mentioned the word loss. So let me ask you this. Is there anything you're worried about losing when it comes to the work dynamic by not having that person-to-person contact in the office like that?
I mean, there's definitely going to be things that we lose by not being co-located, but I'd like to focus on what we gain by being digital. When COVID hit, we made really early decisions to go digital and send everyone home before it was necessary. And what that allowed us to do was to care for our people. We put our health and safety of our people first, and we made some short-term right decisions that really had us thriving on change. And what we did then were short-term, fast decisions that needed to happen. But what we've been doing since then is the research and acquisition of information to make the right decision long-term. And that's the digital by default. And so what we're building towards now is our long-term view of what the world would be in. And I think it's important to note that this isn't something that just Shopify is going to feel. I believe this is a tidal wave that is hitting all companies. You see it all over the industry right now. And so we've decided to be bold and to go out early with our ambition for this and the philosophy behind it, which is this mental model of digital by default, so that we can get more of our great minds internally to start solving for how we work through this and what are some creative and new ways of working.
Shopify previously announced plans for a new office at Wellington and Spadina, just down the road from us here. What would happen to that plan that would have doubled its Toronto workforce by 2022? Does today's announcement affect those plans now?
There's no changes in how we're going to invest in our Canadian market. We're going to continue to double down, grow in Canada. We're a fiercely Canadian company. We love Canada, and it's in our DNA. And so that ambition to grow in Canada is there. We're going to continue to grow, if not faster than what we originally did, to accelerate our roadmap, while also expanding our talent market globally to bring in amazing people.
Now, as Canada's most valuable company, congratulations on that, a lot of smaller businesses will be looking to you to model what the future will look like. Are there any other changes on the horizon for Shopify then?
I mean, this is a pretty big change. I'm going full force on this. And we're going to double down on this. And I think actually one thing I would say there is we're going to really use this as an opportunity to share our learnings. I realize that by going bold and go but early with this decision, we're going to experiment a lot, and some of them are going to work and some of them won't. So my commitment is to share with all the fellow companies out there going down this endeavor of what's working, what's not, and continuing to innovate and build towards the future that I believe is required from all of us.
Yeah, we're hearing some musings now about maybe 4-day work weeks, things like that. In your opinion, and let's just finish with this, is the open office concept dead?
I can't imagine we would ever go back to a world where open concept is the norm. We're actually using the next few months, we've purposely decided to shut down all offices for 2020, both for the safety of our people, but also to give ourselves a moment to reimagine and then redesign what offices should look like in the future. And I think everyone should be doing the same.
That is Brittany Forsyth, Shopify's Chief Talent Officer. Brittany, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
Now, as Brittany mentioned, Shopify is far from alone in making this shift. Last week, Twitter announced they would let all employees work from home. And just after Shopify made their move public today, Facebook announced it is shifting permanently to remote work. There is an exodus on the way from paradise. Canadians in the Cayman Islands are trying to get home. After the break, how their four-legged friends put a snag in their plans, but also united them.
We have a lot of Canadians that live here that have pets and they just won't leave them. He said, well, hey, why don't you organize your own charter?
It's 10 weeks now into the COVID-19 pandemic, and the world has reached a new milestone. The number of cases has topped 5 million, according to Johns Hopkins University. The most recent 1 million cases were added in just the past 11 days. And yesterday, more cases were reported worldwide than ever before. Almost 330,000 people have died. And the U.S. is by far the worst affected country, with more than 1.5 million cases and over 93,000 deaths. Canadians who were in Cayman Islands when the pandemic struck had to pack up and leave with a moment's notice, and they weren't allowed to bring their pets. But thanks to a rescue mission, those owners and their animals are about to be reunited. Alicia San has their story.
Yes, I'm calling it the Noah's Ark Project.
Project Noah's Ark. Mission: get people's pets home after COVID-19 cut short their winter down south. There are a lot of Canadians who spend at least part of the year in Cayman Islands, and when Trudeau was like,
if you're abroad, it's time for you to come home,
WestJet sent out repatriation flights. Families had pretty short notice. They had to pack up their lives in one suitcase each, and they weren't allowed to bring their pets with them. So some of these folks in Cayman decided to wait it out a little longer in paradise.
We have a lot of Canadians that live here that have pets and they just won't leave them.
An animal lover herself, Nicole Poirier, made some calls to the consulate.
He said, well, hey, why don't you organize your own charter? Got a quote. I sent out some social media blasts. I said, hey, is there anybody interested? We'll give you a month to prepare, get your lives in order. We'll give you, a huge allowance for pets. We're allowed 55 pets on this plane, which is just unheard of.
And are they all pitching in, or is this all coming out of your own pocket?
No, I can't afford this. Well, I've signed my name to $140,000 bill that I can't afford. So, so pretty much everyone's got to give me the money, and then I pay the airline.
We had no idea how we were going to get her back.
Kylie Nichols took the repatriation flight back home, leaving her beloved Cora behind.
Just the experience of having to leave her and not knowing when we would see her again. She's a piece of our family, and it was really heart-wrenching. I think I cried most of the flight.
Well, Cora's one of the lucky pets and people flying back on that private charter.
I can't stop smiling because tomorrow is a big day and we finally get her. So yeah, I'm extremely excited, and I'm so grateful for all of their hard work.
The Noah's Ark Project is paws up tomorrow. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
For many, dreams of summer vacation travel have been wiped out by the pandemic. When flying is possible, a mandatory quarantine may await at the other end. And when flights are canceled, passengers are offered vouchers instead of refunds. But many just want their money back, and quickly. The Prime Minister was asked what Ottawa is doing about it.
We are working with the airlines and with Canadians concerned. We're looking at what other countries have done. We're looking to make sure that Canadians are supported financially through this time, but that also we're going to come back with airlines that function here in Canada for the long term. Getting that balance right will be delicate, but it is something that we're working on.
The coronavirus pandemic has been hammering domestic and international trade and travel, and there are many jurisdictions that are anxious to get their economies going again. That's why several countries and regions are looking to push forward with transboundary reopenings based on the theory of travel bubbles. But as Christine Birak tells us, the virus is tricky and those bubbles could burst.
There aren't many places where it's happening yet, but the Baltic states are among the first to form a so-called travel bubble.
We had a little celebration here because the border is now open again.
People living in Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania can now move freely between those countries. All three combined have reported fewer than 150 COVID-19 deaths.
We need to go for a puppy dog.
Screening questions are being asked at the border, but there's no mandatory 2-week quarantine period to protect against travelers who might later develop COVID-19 symptoms.
It's nice to see our customers again.
Australia and New Zealand are discussing a bubble of their own, but scientists say the concept is flawed. Health questions, even temperature checks, don't catch people who aren't showing symptoms. Studies suggest until there are quick COVID-19 tests identifying infected passengers, travel remains risky. This disease tracker says every country inside a bubble would have to have virtually no cases.
It could be something along the lines of 4 weeks with no cases at all. So it's quite a high bar.
In Canada, no new cases have been reported for at least a week in the North, Newfoundland, New Brunswick, and PEI, and there is talk of forming regional travel bubbles.
If you were to include a province that had their numbers under control, then you would treat them like a citizen of your own province.
Some Quebecers are protesting the idea. They want into New Brunswick. Many others see the need to get people and money moving again, but health researchers say quarantines are the safest route.
The virus does not walk around on its own. The virus does not, ride the wind from one part of the world to the other. It comes with us.
Ultimately, it may take a vaccine to burst the bubble so that everyone can move freely. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
After the break, the cross-border battle to see the birth of their child.
I think if you asked Canadians, do you support the border closure? Most people would say yes. I think if you ask Canadians, do you support separating family members and children from their parents? And most Canadians would say no.
A Canadian doctor is separated from her American doctor husband due to border travel restrictions while expecting their first baby. Their story coming your way next. A pregnant doctor in Windsor is worried her American husband could miss the birth of their first child. Ashley and Tom Cook experienced a lot of heartbreak trying to conceive, and after 4 years, they are now soon to be parents. But with the border closed for at least another month due to COVID-19, the frontline workers are hoping their family can reconnect before their unit grows by one. Chris Ensing has their story.
Ashley Cook is feeling physically healthy at 26 weeks pregnant, but there's a lot happening around her.
I feel like emotionally it's been quite trying and stressful, especially with the current border closures.
Her American husband, Tom, lives in northern Michigan in a county with 21 confirmed COVID-19 cases. Ashley is Canadian, living in Windsor. Both are doctors, work where they live, and neither can cross the international border. For now, phone calls and video chats, a pandemic pregnancy spent apart.
So he's literally just been like watching this pregnancy grow over the phone. I'm like, oh, you can feel her move now. And it's like, he can't feel that, you know? And it's sad because I feel like this could be our only pregnancy. Like, we don't want it to be our only pregnancy, but it realistically could, because it took us almost 4 years to get pregnant and 3 cycles of IVF to do so. So like, this might be it.
No one can cross the border unless it's essential. Last week, the Deputy Prime Minister asked border agents to be compassionate.
I will say, as a government, we do encourage them to very much take into account the specific situations of specific families, of specific Canadians.
The Cooks have tried. Ashley's closest family is 4 hours away in Waterloo. Stress weighing heavy for both. A doctor wrote a note for Tom saying a crossing would be best for Ashley and their child.
And so he took that letter from the doctor to the border this past weekend, and they have denied him entry, and then furthermore stated that if he attempts to cross again, he could be banned from Canada for a year.
Windsor-Tecumseh MP Eric Kuzmierczyk's office spoke with Ashley today, saying they've escalated this to the federal minister in charge of the international border. Meanwhile, Ashley deals with patience as a family doctor, holds on to the moment she last spent with her husband, an ultrasound in Michigan.
Kind of like the last, interaction was like, oh, we found out we're having a girl. So it was nice. Sorry. I feel like it's just very emotional, but, it was nice to have that. And so it was kind of like, oh, this is like really good news in like sort of this period of like confusion and frustration and sadness.
Laughing through tears, Ashley knows there's others in similar situations. She hopes sharing her story adds new perspective to the border closures.
I think if you asked Canadians, do you support the border closure? Most people would say yes. I think if you ask Canadians, do you support separating family members and children from their parents? And most Canadians would say no.
That was Windsor's Chris Ensing reporting. The provincial government is funding 15 research projects connected to COVID-19. They include vaccine development and research that focuses on learning more about the virus. Loretta Redekop has the details.
Today, I'm proud to announce that we're moving forward with 15 of the most promising proposals.
Premier Doug Ford announced the new money today for 15 research projects coming from across the province. One will look at rapid testing, another a vaccine.
I want that vaccine to be discovered right here in Ontario.
One of the projects is from the University of Toronto, together with Mount Sinai Hospital. It looks at antibody testing of people who've had the virus but were asymptomatic. They'll use blood and saliva tests. The lead scientist is thrilled with the funding.
It's huge. So up until now, my lab and the labs of my colleagues have had to dip into our ordinary grant money that we use to pay to keep the lights on and keep our students and postdocs working. And we've had to use a lot of them because the work, of course, is a very high priority. So now that we have this grant money, we can kind of relax.
The Ontario funding announced today adds up to $7.2 million. More research will be accepted in the coming weeks. Other COVID-19 research is also going on in Ontario with other funding. One will involve going into long-term care homes to test a specific drug to see if it will work as an antiviral.
Working with Ontario Public Health and long-term care facilities to say, if we have outbreaks, we have a system that will let us test whatever we think the best drugs are.
The drug they're testing out is called favipiravir. It's already licensed in Japan and China against the flu. This testing for COVID-19 is in phase 2 by a pharmaceutical company. They have support from the Nova Scotia government.
I'm trying not to be excited because we don't know whether it works. The concept that you could identify cases early and effectively stop it from spreading in nursing homes is, obviously an enormous benefit.
She says a vaccine is important, but other treatments could come faster. Lorenda Redicott, CBC News, Toronto.
It has become a way of life for most people during this pandemic, disinfecting anything and everything that comes into your home, including groceries. Now, what if you could ensure that those groceries were virus-free before even leaving the store? Greg Ross speaks to a couple of entrepreneurs who believe they may have the solution.
We'll deactivate viruses, pathogens, and bacteria on the surfaces and the outsides of items.
Alyssa Mincer and her business partner Dara Gallinger are the co-founders of the Exterminator. For the past couple of days, they've had a prototype at the Summer Hill Market in the Annex. They say it uses ultraviolet light to clean your groceries.
Certain levels of UVC dosages are required to inactivate the bacteria and viruses, and the dose itself is a combination of the intensity of the UV light, how long it remains under the UV light, and how close the UV light is to the actual product.
The prototype kind of looks like the machines they use at the airport to x-ray your luggage. Mincer and Gallinger say they plan to make it smaller.
We're in very early stages, however, we're moving fast.
UVC light is being used in many other places to kill bacteria, including hospitals. In fact, in New York, it's currently being used to disinfect subway cars.
It's a very, very powerful tool to ensure that those surfaces are free of contaminants. That being said, it has to be done properly.
Emergency room Dr. Brett Belchich says the Exterminator is a promising idea, but the people operating the machine have to take all proper precautions.
This is not safe for exposure, for skin, for eyes, etc.
Of course, anyone who's around the machine and using the machine needs to be wearing protective eyewear and long sleeves and gloves.
Belchett says the coronavirus is more likely to live on hard packages than on produce, but in order for the UVC light to be 100% effective, it has to make direct contact with all surfaces.
Most food is not a straight surface, especially when we're thinking about things like fruits, vegetables, or other types of surfaces. There's lots of shadow, there's lots of hidden surfaces, there's lots of places where that radiation just isn't going to reach.
Belchett says it's best to continue washing fruits and vegetables before eating them. Mincer and Gallinger are still conducting tests on the Exterminator in hopes of maximizing its efficiency.
We just want consumers to feel safe at the last point before they leave the grocery store on their way home. And that's our goal.
If all goes well, they say we could be seeing the Exterminator in stores as early as 2 to 3 months from now. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto police are searching for a sex assault suspect tonight. Investigators say on Wednesday, May 20th, between 6:15 and 7:30, a man approached two separate women in the Shepherd and Wilson area and sexually assaulted them. The man took off on a black mountain bike. He's described as about 5'5", with a thin build, between 25 and 35 years old. He was wearing a black windbreaker with white or silver piping, black pants with white stripes, light-colored shoes, and a black hat. And a man is dead after a crash involving a truck and a motorcycle in Vaughan. The motorcycle collided with a flatbed truck that was carrying barricades. It happened just after 6 this morning on Keel near Langstaff. The 47-year-old motorcyclist was pronounced dead in hospital. The driver of the truck was not hurt. York police are asking for witnesses or anyone who has dashcam footage of the crash to contact them. There have been 12 cases of COVID-19 amongst the Canadian Armed Forces that are stationed at long-term care homes in our province. The soldiers and medical personnel were deployed to these homes to try and play a critical role in stopping the spread of the virus. CBC spoke to Lieutenant Colonel James Stalker, whose group is stationed right here in the GTA. He explains what it has been like to serve Canada during a pandemic.
There is as a supporting agency, we're there in support of the civil authorities, and we're there to support those homes in any way we can. So the medical teams will do what you'd expect medical teams to do, primarily clinical work and direct patient care for the residents in those facilities. Our general duties personnel augment by doing tasks like disinfecting, like cleaning, like laundry, like food portering, and even some light organizational work for the homes. It's an integrated team, and the team itself is integrated into the larger staff metric within the home. So they integrate within the larger staff of the facility itself. We've been following pretty strict social distancing, enforced health protection measures, frequent hand washing, training in personal protective equipment, distancing, et cetera. And then there was additional specific training for this mission in terms of care for elderly residents and advanced training in the donning and doffing of personal protective equipment. So I think the TBG itself was actually quite well prepared for the task. The decision on which PPE to wear in what situation is driven by medical guidelines, by the provision of advice of medical authorities, be it the Public Health Agency of Canada, be it our own CAF health network. And so they have pretty stark guidelines on what PPE to wear in what situation, depending on the level of risk, depending on the level of potential infection. There's certainly a very serious sort of human aspect to this, and you know how my soldiers are dealing with it. Soldiers, sailors, and aviators is really in terms of giving back. So one salient anecdote that I might leave you with is our soldiers and sailors and aviators in their few off minutes in the homes have been going above and beyond to help out the residents. So I do have one report of one soldier who's quite a gifted piano player, as it turns out, and in his spare time, such as it is, he plays piano in one of the homes, and it immediately sort of lifts the atmosphere a little bit. And it's one of those human touches that we can add. I think that every mission is singular. Every mission has its own unique challenges, but this is perhaps more unique than most. I don't think any soldier or sailor or aviator envisioned working in a long-term care facility, but this was the need of Canada and Canadians, and it's a way for us really to serve. And I think that military personnel are driven first and foremost by a desire to serve, and this is how we can serve Canada and Canadians in their hour of greatest need. So if I was going to offer sort of one word to describe the mood or the tenor here, it would be motivated, and motivated to help, and motivated to help as part of a broader pan-governmental response to this crisis.
And it was a special day for the class of 2020 at the Royal Military College as they virtually celebrated their graduation.
Today marks the beginning of a new chapter in your lives. And though this celebration is normally marked by you marching through the Memorial Arch with your swords held high, this celebration of your accomplishment is undiminished by the changes we all have had to make to adapt to this global pandemic.
More than 300 students graduated from the college today with both graduate and undergraduate degrees. About 230 officers and naval cadets completed all requirements to have lieutenant rankings in the Canadian Armed Forces. The ceremony was streamed live on Facebook to make sure all could be a part of the special moment. Colette's back after the break with a look at your forecast for the weekend. Can it really be better than today? Stay with us to find out. We'll be right back. Let's check in with Colette. And Colette, usually the north is colder than the south.
Usually.
What's going on?
Yeah, that's not the case, Dwight. What we're seeing is actually some record-breaking heat in Ontario, but it's in northern Ontario. Cap is casing 29 degrees today, a new record. And by the way, the hot spot, not just in Ontario, all of Canada today, 30.5 degrees in Geraldton. But that wasn't a new record there because the record is 30.6. Just missed it. But you can see just some of the heat here up into northern Ontario. Okay, not fair for Moosonee, but just that heat is going to be coming our way eventually. But it's actually warmer we're seeing there. And I was showing you earlier the high even in Ottawa today was 25 degrees. So warmer than what we have for the lower Great Lakes. But tonight we have these clear conditions. We go down to single digits, high single digits, increasing clouds for tomorrow a little later in the day. We're still going to have sunshine to start things off. And that gradual warming, the real heat doesn't come in till we get to about Monday. There is a warm front coming through Sunday, but it looks like it'll be the next one into Monday that'll push things up and our humidity up as well. Our current temperature is still holding on there, 20 degrees in Toronto. Just a beautiful evening ahead of us. The sun not setting till less than 20 minutes to 9, 8:42 for tonight. There are those clear skies. Now, there are some changes coming due to a system that's actually to the south. This is an area of low pressure. We're actually being protected here by high pressure, and that's been pumping some of the heat into northern Ontario. But as this starts to move a little further east, it's also going to skim northward. So some cloud cover will come in tomorrow towards the Niagara region, trying to push around towards Hamilton. And not only that, but we'll see some showers possible tomorrow. The risk in the afternoon for the, again, Niagara region mostly, but towards tomorrow evening, that risk will be enhanced a little bit. So St. Catharines area may get a few showers in there. Into the GTA, it's primarily just going to be a nice day with some evening clouds then kind of rolling in. Into Saturday, cloud cover in southwestern Ontario. Much of the day still looking pretty good into the GTA. And then Sunday, things will be changing. As that front goes through, we'll likely see some showers and also even the risk of getting into a few isolated thunderstorms, although a greater chance of that by the time we get to Monday with some of that humidity. Overnight tonight, there are those single digits I mentioned, high single digits. Tomorrow afternoon, even warmer than today. Markham, you stay into the full sun, so 24 degrees. Elsewhere with a bit of cloud cover, low 20s for the highs. And then Saturday, 23 degrees, still looks pretty good. Sunday, that chance for some showers comes in. And then Monday, Dwight, is when that heat really starts to come up and those temperatures go above 25 for our daytime highs.
And it'll start feeling like Geraldton. Thank you, Colette.
Oh, I hope.
The state of Michigan is working to recover from catastrophic flooding caused by the failures of 2 dams. The governor says U.S. President Donald Trump is promising federal support as the breaches caused some of the worst flooding the state has ever experienced.
The damage is truly devastating to see how high the water levels are, to see roofs barely visible in parts of Midland, and to see a lake that's been drained in another part. It's truly remarkable how much damage we have sustained.
Yes, you heard that correctly. A lake that was behind one of the ruptured dams is essentially gone. That torrent of water that came after days of heavy rain caused a second dam to then overflow. Several cities and towns have been submerged, and 11,000 people have been forced to higher ground. Hundreds of National Guard soldiers are now in the area, removing debris and helping evacuees. An investigation is on the way into the upkeep of the 2 privately owned dams. Full House star actress Lori Loughlin and her husband have agreed to plead guilty and serve jail time as part of a deal in the U.S. college admissions bribery scandal. Now, Loughlin has agreed to serve 2 months. Her husband, fashion designer Massimo Giannulli, will serve 5 months. They've also agreed to pay fines totaling $400,000. The couple was scheduled to go on trial in October. They were charged with bribery and fraud for trying to get their 2 daughters into the University of Southern California as rowing team recruits. Neither of the girls was involved in the sport, and both have since left the school. Dozens of other wealthy parents have been charged in the case, including actress Felicity Huffman. She pleaded guilty and received a 14-day sentence last year. After the break, today's Frontline Hero. Stick around for that. We're coming right back. Time now for one of my favorite parts of the show, Your Frontline Hero. Almost every night after 7:30 p.m., when the chorus of pots and pans subsides, Filippo Lusuriaga heads to his apartment balcony in Davisville to play his violin. He started the performances at the beginning of April and is now known as the violinist on the balcony. Take a listen.
I started playing the violin from my balcony because after a conversation that I had with my wife, we realized that we needed to share how we were feeling in this special time. And what better way to do it than through music? It's a way to get the community together and to maybe let other people also share their feelings and maybe support some people that are feeling in different situations now, and a bit of entertainment also for them, and to something to look forward to every night. The response that we've got from the people around us, it's been so a little bit overwhelming for me. It's really warm, the response. People are out there waiting every night, and they cheer a lot at the end, and it's very special. I've seen people across from my balcony in the building across from me showing a lot of different emotions, and it really tells you or makes you feel the power that music has, and we can all contribute to making our community a better place. If we look inside, if we look at what we have to share, what we have to give to each other, and give each other a hand in any way we can. And really, if we look inside, we'll find that love is the answer, and I think we can all do this in our own way.
As we would say at the theater, bravo. Thank you for everything you're doing, Felipe. If you would like to share a story about your frontline hero, send us a selfie-style video explaining why they are a hero to you. Tag us on Twitter or Instagram at CBC Toronto. Send us a message on Facebook or email us at torontotips@cbc.ca. Now that you had us all running to Google to figure out where Geraldton is, we've discovered it's up by Thunder Bay, Colette. Thank you.
Well, I thought there might be a few folks who maybe weren't familiar.
Yes.
So, yeah, I built a graphic here because I also wanted to just show kind of this crazy jet stream. I mean, it's somewhat unusual when I say crazy in terms of it goes way up towards the north over in the prairies and then cuts across. And where that heat is there, Geraldton, as I was mentioning earlier, even though they made it to, it's rounded up here, 30.5, and the hot spot in Canada just missed by just a 1/10 of a degree, being a new record there. But Kapuskasing, new record at 29. And just to illustrate how Ottawa even warmer than Toronto today at 25, but you know, more than 10 degrees warmer to the north of us here in Toronto. But we got some heat coming. Even as soon as tomorrow, our temperature is going to be a little bit warmer than even today's daytime highs. Really nice into the evening here, 16 degrees, the temperature coming down as we get towards about 8:30. Overnight tonight, we will have those clear skies again, and the wind's quite light, so 9 degrees will be the low. Now tomorrow, most of the day will be sunny, and then we'll get some clouds kind of rolling in as we get towards the afternoon, 22 for the high. I will just mention that for areas around the Niagara region, you're going to see some of that cloud cover sooner, likely some showers even possible there, and a little more cloud cover coming around towards Burlington and Hamilton and possibly even towards Mississauga as the afternoon wears on. But elsewhere, a lot of sunshine, like Markham, full sun. It'll be 24 tomorrow. Dwight?
Lucky them. Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
That is our show for tonight. Thank you for joining us. Mike Wise has your next local news tonight after the National at 11. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 6. Stay safe, everybody.